It's Friday, everybody. Welcome into the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I have a very special guest. Terry T from College Football Stop is stopping by. So, Terry, before I forget and do all the things, tell people where to find you, what days to find you, and then all the other good stuff.
Yeah, dude. How you doing, bro? Let me ask you
I'm
that
good.
first. I know we talked a little bit, but man, dude, as far as finding me, man, I'm just on Best Damn Media. Really, I don't really do anything other than that now. We got the Fans Edge with my guy Mike. We do every Wednesday, which is kind of our national college football show. It is to Ohio State fans, but it's a national show, especially when it's like mid-season. In the playoffs, we were kind of an Ohio State show, but come on, man, we were still talking about the other games, but yeah, and then you usually can catch me on the Buckeye roast at least one morning out of the week. It just depends. That's again on Best Damn Media. So that's about it for me. Just other than that on Twitter, CFB_stop.
Sweet. Yep. Actually, this morning people were wondering what's going on with the morning roast. I don't like. They've been really busy. I know.
Yeah, man, and I think they just get busy. That's all it is, and it's the off season. So them were some of my favorite guys, dude. Ron Q, all them guys,
I love
man.
Ron and Q. I always look forward to that morning.
Yeah, they'll get back to it. So
yeah, it's hard. You guys, everybody knows that follows the show. Like Dan's the vice president of the World Houses of America or whatever. So it's we're all just trying to make it work because we all have other stuff we do. So speaking of being a Buckeye show, that's what I do. That's what we do. So Terry, I want to get your first impression, and we'll break it down a little bit. And I'm going to start with one of the more not so minor moves, but kind of minor moves. How do you feel about Billy Fessler, quarterback's coach? What did you hear? What do you know? What do you like? What don't you like?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know too much about Billy Fessler himself, but everyone that I've heard that knows him or knows more about him has kind of give like raving reviews about how good he is. And, even Will Howard said that Billy Fessler really helped him a lot. So I like it, man, especially for like a quarterback coach at Ohio State, right? You got Ryan Day. So basically what Ryan Day needs to do with that position is just find somebody young who he wants to mentor and he wants to turn into a hell of a coach who could end up maybe being an offensive coordinator for him someday, or, like they can use that to further their career and maybe he can circle back here later, kind of just become a part of that Ryan Day coaching tree. And I mean, if that's what he's going to do with Billy Fessler, I love it, dude. I mean,
yep. I 100% agree with you. So I asked a few people in and around, the Woody, because I was just curious because Fessler is young, and I know Will Howard raved about him and Will said how much Billy helped him. The number one feedback I got about Billy Fessler, besides he's a really, really nice guy and a quality human being, is that he coaches quarterbacks the way Ryan Day wants him to coach them. So, Ryan Day got his start. We all know this, quarterback guru, offensive guru. But Fessler coaches the quarterbacks the way that Ryan Day prefers. And then Ryan Day is obviously able to give input to Fessler. So that I understand the hire. I think that, the credit. And if you look at Will Howard's run in the playoff and how well he played,
dude.
Yeah.
Dude,
I mean,
Will Howard was crazy in the playoffs. Not to interrupt you, man, but he was crazy in the playoffs, and like basically everything that people questioned about Will Howard, he had it in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't know. You can go on with your point you were making, but
no. I actually feel like I need to have Andre Napier back. He came on the show, Kansas State podcast, and he was saying, "No, I'm telling you, I think Will Howard can throw the deep ball, like if he has the receivers in time." I still don't think he had the strongest arm in the world, because there were times he definitely, like, if he hits JJ in stride, it's probably not as contested, but like through that playoff run.
Yeah, but at the same time, all that really did, and listen, we've seen quarterbacks in the past that don't have the strongest arm but are elite. You know what I mean? Like, it happens. All that meant is that he just needed to throw the ball on time. That's it. Like the wide receivers need to win their routes early, and he needs to throw the ball on time. And in the playoffs, that's what they did. He would get back there, get his feet set. Ryan Day kept saying that. He kept saying, whenever Will Howard gets his feet right, he's very, very good. But I mean, you saw it, dude. Like whenever he got his feet set early, got the ball out, the ball was on the money. He was hitting Jeremiah in stride, honestly, in the playoffs. So,
well, the one that was super telling for me, and it was the second touchdown against Oregon, that dime right down the middle over the safety around the corner to Mech in the end zone. Like one of the best throws I've seen from a college quarterback probably ever in that scenario in a playoff. So yeah, Bill Fessler, think he's the right guy, but we know what Ryan Day can do with quarterbacks too. So
yeah, and on that play, real quick, Chad.
Yeah.
On that play was a perfect example of what Emeka is elite at, and because as much as Will Howard made the throw, Emeka also made the play too by late hands. You know
the
what I mean?
late hands.
Those defenders didn't even know the ball was there.
No.
Emeka caught it before they even knew it was coming.
Yeah,
and he did that a couple times in the playoffs. So
yeah,
just wanted to point that out, man.
Yeah, he just kind of was like, and
Just
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, he's going to be a first round wide receiver. We know that.
He should be.
I think so. I think he'll be between 12 and 25 if I was guessing. So the next one, let's hit Tyler Bowen. Now I'm really excited for this hire, but only because I remember Tyler Bowen from Penn State. I know that the Virginia Tech, he was the offensive coordinator last year. You read their boards, they're kind of like, whatever. So how are you feeling? What do you think?
So, I mean, the one thing I've heard about this guy is that he's just a very good recruiter. And I think that was the beef with our previous O-line coach, right? Was that he couldn't recruit. We all know he could develop. Every guy he put out there was playing well for the most part. But this, hopefully this is a guy that can help us with recruiting the O-line and then maybe down the road other positions, because obviously at Penn State, he was known because he did recruited some of the best tight ends in the country. So, we could have him help out with that too. Obviously, he hasn't coached O-line in a long time, at least like as his main job. So it's kind of hard to tell how that's going to go. So, I mean, I don't know. I like the hire in terms of like what Ryan Day is looking for. And also I think that you're looking at a guy who kind of specializes in the O-line, tight end, run game, which when we get to the next part, we're going to talk about Brian Hartline.
Yep.
You need somebody in the room who can kind of help coordinate the run game, because as much, Brian Hartline probably is good at that. I can't wait to get into that conversation, but he's going to specialize more in the pass game because he's a wide receiver. So.
Yeah. I agree with all points. And so he did bring in Olafashnu to the left tackle at Penn State. So here's what I told Juck before we knew Tyler Bowen was coming. So Juck and I did a show a week or so ago, and we were just rapping. And I said, man, the thing I want, and he talked about this too, we want to be able to recruit regionally. And I said, for me, I want somebody that can recruit the DMV too. So Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, because there's some dudes that come out of there, and they're bad dudes too, like from the south side of D.C., places you don't go unless you have somebody to walk you up and down the steps to different apartments. I'm just saying. However, so Tyler Bowen can do that. He has that footprint there. He's been recruiting for Virginia Tech and Penn State, and that it's exactly what we want, a regional guy to get us those bad dudes, those 4-star dudes. Take your swing, but I'm hoping he already has a relationship with Iheanacho, because he's my David Sanders in this class. I think long term he's going to be better than Cantwell and any of these other guys at the tackle position. But this is he's just a bad dude. And again, I always kind of have one guy in every class. I'm like, man, I just like him better than the rest. And Iheanacho's that guy this time. So
but check him out. I haven't checked him out. So
take a look. Let me know. And the interesting thing is, Cantwell, being in Kansas, I worry about the competition. There's a lot of things I worry about with him. And I'm not trying to bash on a kid. I'm not. I'm sure he's a great player, but just one of those things. I just have those guys. I'm like, man, I just like this film so much better. I like his feet so much better. I like the competition so much better. So
you can see it usually. You know what I mean? There's usually a couple guys who you can see wow, this is going to translate.
Yeah. Really the last 5 years I've been in and around and doing this stuff, especially when I started my Twitter page. My biggest thing was I was into recruiting. I was always very, very into recruiting and high school recruits. And so there's always guys, I know Jack teased me a little bit this morning because he was talking about defensive line. I'm like, I'm buying all the Caden McDonald stock I can buy, and I have been for 2 years because he was just that guy. He's an underrated guy because he was a little shorter, came out of Georgia. Anyways, let's flip to, then you mentioned Brian Hartline. I know you're excited to talk about this. So fill me in, man. Why, I'm behind it. I agree with it. I like the idea, but tell me your reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be wanting to talk about this kind of since it happened because I've seen so much negativity. Obviously, I live in the Twitter world with Ohio State stuff. Just so you
Mm,
know, like I'm there, I'm on there as much as I can be. But I've seen a lot of negativity, dude, and I
okay.
don't understand it. Like I understand it to an extent, but I think that a lot of people are over exaggerating what happened in 2023. I think that Ryan Day was not ready to give up play calling, and Ryan Day, I like discussed that he was possibly going to get get rid of play calling. But I think everybody knew that Hartline's promotion at that time was a promotion to give him more money because of what he was doing with the wide receiver. And I just think that Ryan Day wasn't ready to give up play calling. Like obviously maybe Hartline is better at it now than he was then because that was, he's had a whole year, had Chip Kelly in the room. That's fine. Like I expect him to be better at it now than he was then. But I just don't think that you can use that example and be like, oh well, he had his chance and Ryan Day said that he was bad at it, so now, or Ryan Day let us know that he was bad at it, so he must be a bad play caller. And I don't agree with that. I think we have Brian Hartline as a coach who has excelled at every single possible thing that he could excel at as the wide receiver coach at Ohio State. And then when you look at a guy like Brian Hartline, with him excelling at everything that he's been asked to do, why would we say, well, he's going to be bad at this part of the game? Like I just
Yeah.
don't, I don't get that logic. Like, do I think that he's going to be as good as Ryan Day at play calling in the Texas game? Probably not. I mean, we got to be real about it. But also, does it really matter if he is? Like, if I told you, well, Brian Hartline is going to make some mistakes in the Texas game, and that game is going to be iffy. I don't know if we're going to win that one or not because Brian Hartline is going to make some mistakes. But by the end of the year, he's going to be an elite play caller. Then we're fine. That's what I expect from him. I just expect him to get better as he goes on. And honestly, it doesn't scare me because there's always that chance. And maybe it's because I'm a bit of like a risk taker. Sorry, I'm talking. I'm well, like a
No,
little
do your
monologue
thing,
here,
man. I'm
but
listening.
maybe it's because I'm a little bit of a risk taker of just kind of life and whatnot. But I I think that there's a chance that Brian Hartline could be like the next superstar offensive coordinator that turns into a head coach. And if you have the chance for that, I'm taking it.
I'm with you. But here's what I link back to. Okay. So we
Mhm.
know Ryan Day was a play caller for Urban Meyer. We also know Tom Herman
Yep.
was. And I wanna remind you guys that Urban Meyer had the ultimate decision when it came down to play calls. So he had the headset on still, and you're gonna have that same scenario with Brian Hartline and Ryan Day. If Ryan vehemently disagrees with something, you know, there you are. That's he'll override it. So I don't really have a whole lot of concerns. If I had a concern, it's a little bit of the game flow, because Ryan had a really good way, and Chip had a really good way, except for the Michigan game of like getting in a flow, and he was 3 plays ahead of where we were, so he's not thinking about this play or this play. He's already on the third play of the drive, and but how, I think that, of course, Brian, he had a headset on too. He was listening to play calls. He worked with Chip Kelly, and ultimately I want people to remember this is Ryan Day's offense and Brian Hartline's just calling the plays. So, this is same idea with the defense. This is going to be Ryan Day / Jim Knowles defense. It's just going to be different, different schemes and plays. But I like it because I don't think Brian Hartline needs to go to Akron to be an offensive coordinator for 3 years to come back and be an offensive coordinator. I think, I think he's been in a program, and you're right. Everything that man has done from college, high school to college to the pros, he's been elite at. So I think it's the right decision. That's where I land on it. I don't understand the negativity, because I would say, let me just use this as an example. If this were, let's say, Auburn, and Auburn hired Brian Hartline as their offensive coordinator, that would be news everywhere. It'd be a huge hire, absolutely phenomenal.
Exactly.
and like best hire of the off season, whatever you want to say, or UCLA, or pick a school, I don't care, A&M, that would be the coup of all coups for those schools. But because Brian Hartline's an Ohio State guy and he's been in the program, he's been our wide receivers coach, oh well, anywhere else this would
Exactly.
be huge news and like a gigantic hire. So
Yep.
if anybody has a problem with it, I guess we know this, Terry. No one, Ohio State fans are just never happy. There's
Right. I mean, like, there's also the sentiment that, like, you should never be doing something for the first time at Ohio State, right? And
whatever.
I understand that sentiment, but, like, can we just be real? And, like, if someone is going to do something, first off, Ryan Day is doing it because he was never a head coach. But anyway, if there was
You
one,
stole my thunder.
if there was one exception to the rule, this is the exception.
Yeah.
Like, Brian Hartline is the best position coach in college football and has been for years now. And it's like Brian Hartline has reached highs that like no other position coach has reached.
Yep.
And now he's topped it, because now it's like, okay, well, we've reached this high with Marvin Harrison and Emeka and all these guys. But then there's JJ, and then there's Carnell Tate, and then there's going to be BI, and then it's just, I don't know. Again, what he's done, it just, if there was going to be an exception to the rule, it has to be this one. This is the exception. This is the ultimate exception.
Yeah. My biggest excitement right now is with Jeremiah Smith is I want to see he and Chris Henry on the field together, because we're going to get 1 year of that. We're going to get 1 year.
That'd be crazy.
And I mean, unbelievable, man. Not to take anything away from Carnell, because Carnell's a dude, Brandon's a dude, Bryson Rogers is a dude, and Quincy Porter's the next great wide receiver behind JJ that's on the team currently. But gosh, man, Chris Henry Jr. Anyway, it's just, but I'm still on that natty high too, man. Like, that was what I was going to end with, like, about people being unhappy. I'm like, man, just like, I'm just reveling in this. Like, it's been 10 years, 10 years, and now we have it again, and we're national champs. And Ryan Day looks like a completely different dude now. Like, it's almost like the world has been lifted off his shoulders, and he can just go be him, and this team can be him. And he, the urban shadow is gone.
Same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone. And he could make this his own. But all right. I want to like flip over. I'm just curious, because I think you have really good insight, and I know you were at spring practices last year. And what do you think about the defensive coordinator position? The Knowles thing, like, I'm not really that bothered by it. In my mind, this happens at Ohio State. You get a coordinator for 3 or 4 years, and if they're not hired away, you have a problem with the coordinator. So it's the Greg Studwara, that kind, like, we had to like push him out the door, kind of thing. There's a problem. And the Chris Ash, the Kerry Combs, Knowles leaving, cool, whatever. He got more money. He went home. He's got grandkids. All that stuff. So I know that, I think you and I talked maybe Randy Bates, and there's some other names out there. How are you feeling? What are you feeling? Where are you at? Knowles leaving and replacement, question mark.
So I think I have a bit of a different opinion than most people on this. And it's more so about like the defensive scheme than it is like an actual person, right?
Okay.
To me, I think that what I don't want to do, all right, what I don't want to do is I don't want Jim Knowles to leave, and I don't want us to cling on to this scheme that Jim Knowles was running as if the scheme was the reason that Ohio State's defense was so good. And it was part of the scheme, but the issue I have is like we've seen this before. We've seen Ohio State have Jeff Hafley for 1 year, and then the next year Ryan Day clings on to the scheme, makes a hire, and says, here's the scheme that I want you to run. And then we ended up with a defense that was down for multiple years. So for me, people have talked a lot about like hiring inside. The only way you do that is if you think you have a superstar like how Brian Hartline is. And people have talked about Matt Guerrieri. I don't even know. I don't want to get into it because I don't know if he's that good. Like, I have no way to know that, right? And I'm not about to just say he's like the best thing since sliced bread without actually knowing. But if you have that, then go ahead and hire that guy, and that's fine. But if you don't, I think that you go out and you get a defensive coordinator, and you let that defensive coordinator use their system and implement it here at Ohio State. It's not the biggest deal in the world to change system. It's football. You know what I mean? It's not like they're going to come in here and give you a different game. They're going to implement their own schemes, their own philosophies, and you need to make sure that your coaching staff is on board with that, obviously. But Ryan Day's smart; he's going to do that before anybody even comes here and starts working as the defensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm in a position now where I wasn't in 2020 that I can say Ryan Day has done a great job with 85% of his assistant hires. The Kerry Combs experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like Kerry Combs is a great guy, great defensive back coach, not really a great defensive coordinator. So
No.
those are the kind of things that but Ryan Day has done it, just seemed to excel the last several years. And that's part of that. I think he also has come out of the Urban Meyer shadow, because he kept Corey Dennis on out of allegiance to Urban Meyer, and Combs was a Meyer guy, and so you can go down that coaching tree. So I personally think it will be a defensive coordinator situation, and I think it will be Guerreri as part of that. But I don't think you'll have an announcement till next week after the Super Bowl of who the other guy is. So
yeah, and I mean the name's been thrown around. The Joe Cullen, the guy who's the defensive line coach at Kansas State. I mean Kansas City. Kansas City. Anyway, I mean I would like that hire if they make it. Honestly, like that's the type of hire that I want. Like give me someone who's been through it all, kind of. Has been through the NFL too, because the NFL is like a scheme league. The NFL, your rosters are set up a player for player, and your job is to make sure that you have the best scheme to go win the game, right? I mean, I think a lot of the defensive coordinators from the NFL really are good in college, especially right now in this era. Like, look at Michigan, dude. I hate to say it, but their defense has been elite, and what they kind of did was they tapped into that Baltimore Ravens kind of defensive scheme, and the coaches that have been through there, and just kind of that came up around that scheme, and it's worked. So I think if we can hire someone like Joe Cullen and let him bring his system to Ohio State, I'm good with that. I don't want, again, my biggest thing, I know I said it before, but I just don't want to get caught up and be like, well, Jim Knowles' system won us the national championship, so now we need to find coaches that will run Jim Knowles' system. Because, like, go ahead.
Oh, man. So people are really forgetful. So if Jim Knowles' system was going to win us a national championship, we would have beat Georgia in 2022. Ryan Day got involved, and I know this for a fact, and we all do, after the first Oregon game, and said, look, this isn't working. Nick Saban called the defense antiquated, and everything changed after that. So I am with you 1,000% about the scheme. The one thing I will say that in college that's a little different than the NFL is you can have that dude that can just beat all the other dudes in college, because there's just not enough dudes to keep up with that dude. So we have, in the past, we had the Chase Youngs, the Bosa brothers, and then this last year, towards the end of the year, Jack Sawyer found a gear that I didn't know he had.
Right.
And then you had Tyleik Williams, the ultimate disruptor, and what Michigan tapped into, they had Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, dudes that like no other dudes can stop like that, again, that does happen in college. So yes, but I agree with you. That's a very Baltimore Raven thing as well, because I remember their nose tackles and stuff were always talented. So I'm interested to see what they do. I do think it's going to be Joe Cullen. It's kind of the worst kept secret now. It seems to be that
I hope it is.
Well, I think they're just waiting until after the Super Bowl to announce it.
I mean,
and then I'm old enough to remember that Joe Cullen was the defensive coordinator for Indiana in like the early 2000s. So I don't, I can't say there was anything great about those teams, but I do know they give Ohio State fits whenever we played them, especially there back in those days, the Tressel days. It was always way closer than it needed to be, and it drove me nuts. So, all right. Well, you mentioned Michigan, Terry. You mentioned it. You brought it up.
Now we can talk about how their defense got so much better.
Yeah.
The real reason I'm just playing.
Well, I just want to get your opinion, and this is just strictly opinion. Obviously, so we get the reply from Michigan to the NCAA. I didn't read the whole thing. I read some excerpts, especially around the current 6 level 1 violations. But what did you make of that? What, like, again, this is Dan's baby. I don't know enough about it. Jack was on. We don't know enough about it to be like, hey, this is going to happen. But I have no faith in the NCAA that they're actually going to do
Yeah.
anything that it's going to make me feel better about any of it. But what your opinion? Just your opinion. What did you think of that? Why? The whole thing.
I just think that it like everyone just was talked about this when it was news, and then everyone as time went on said, well, nothing's going to happen, and the only logical reason that people had for that was nothing's happened so far. But it's like when this whole thing started, we all knew that this was going to take forever because the NCAA just takes forever. They're going off of little time frames that they legally have to use, right? They have 180 days here, 60 days here for this to happen. I've always been under the impression that something is going to happen. I think that they'll probably have vacated wins, and I think that they'll have some kind of future punishment. And I'm not ever going to say that they'll get the hammer, because when you say that, that just leaves it up for interpretation. Like, you could consider vacated wins a hammer, and Michigan fans could just be like, well, I mean, we've watched those games. It doesn't even matter.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I've seen a lot of them say that too. Like I was there in 2021 when we beat Ohio State, and for the first time in 17 years or whatever. And you can't take that memory from me. Okay, well, cool, good, all right. I was also, I watched Ohio State beat Arkansas in 2011. I was there, and I have the memory, but it's not in the history books.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I just think something's going to happen, dude. And honestly, they made the postseason in all 3 of those seasons that they were cheating. I personally think that like a 1-year postseason ban would be. I wish that would happen, just because I think it would be funny. I think it would be funny for them to get a postseason ban. And I know it's like not whatever, punishing current players, but like they did that at Ohio State. We didn't get our postseason got banned in 2012, and nobody that even. It costed us a natty, and nobody was even on the team at that point that did it, right? I mean, right. I don't know.
Yeah, cost us a natty.
Yeah, I do think that something's going to happen. Like I said, I'm not going to say that hammer's coming type stuff, because, again, that's all up for interpretation on what you think it is. Like to me, if they got wins vacated and they got a scholarship reduction, a fine, and maybe a 1-year postseason ban, like, to me, that'd be a hammer. But to a lot of people, it probably wouldn't. But I mean, if that happened to Ohio State, I would be sick. I would be so, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the most interesting aspect of this for me, by far, is what happens with Sharon Moore, because a lot of those cats aren't there anymore. Harbaugh's gone, Minter's gone, all those guys are gone. And if they have enough to show that Moore like genuinely knew and or participated, and he already there, that could end up with a show cause, and then Michigan's hamstrung, and they have to fire him, and then that opens up Pandora's box for transfers, because that immediately opens the transfer portal window for any players there. And I think that to me would be what I would consider the hammer. Like, because I don't think Michigan, even with their NIL efforts, could retain all of that, knowing that they're, if there's a show cause, a postseason ban, like that to me would be enough to consider it a hammer. But I have no faith in the NCAA. I really don't. I think they're
No, I get that. I mean, I get that, but I do agree with you that that's definitely the most interesting aspect of it, because all of this, like, Michigan fans they seem pretty excited about the future of their team right now, especially with Bryce Underwood and all that good stuff. Yeah, I mean, they put together a really good recruiting class, and they should get better. We'll see, but I mean, they lost a lot too, so we'll see how that goes. It also depends on how good of a coach Sharon Moore is. Like, I mean, he's 1 year, lost 5 games. Like, I mean, they beat Ohio State, so they have something to hang their hat on, and Alabama. So, again, they have the right to be excited, but that could change really fast, like you said, if something happens with Sharon Moore. Because if something happens with Sharon Moore, and that automatically makes your roster open for 30 days if your coach leaves. In this era, your roster being open, people are not waiting for those players to hit the portal before they give them a call. So, I mean,
yep. I highlighted a few things just because, I looked up what level 1 violations were,
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to layer them with what it could possibly be for Michigan. And so I don't think it's academic misconduct. I don't think it's payments to recruits and boosters because we have NIL now. So that eliminates those two. But there's lack of institutional control.
They got
Obviously,
that one for sure.
failure to cooperate with an NCAA investigation. We're sure of that, or pretty sure.
No,
Unethical
they
conduct.
definitely got that one.
Unethical conduct. And a violation of head coach responsibility rules. So those four of the ones that I like, of the level 1 violations I looked at, make sense, especially since they've found 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 don't make any sense, but those 4, yeah, kind of makes sense. And those are big ones too. And when you hear lack of institutional control, but again, what's the
you don't have faith in the NCAA, right?
Yeah, it comes back to that. I just don't have any faith in them. All right, so I want to ask you, how are you feeling after the Natty? Like, are you happy? Are you satisfied? I was really happy for Ryan Day as an individual, just because like I have met Ryan Day. He's an incredibly nice guy. You know, been through a lot in his life, and like it was so nice to see that for him, and then also Sawyer and Trey and those guys that came back. But how are you feeling?
Yeah, man, that's kind of how it was for me, dude. It's like I was happy for all of them, Ryan Day, all of them. I kind of like, to me, I called the Texas game the national championship. Yeah, and I said it before the game. Everybody kept saying the Oregon game wasn't. Like, no, it's not. Like, we still have to play Texas or another team like that. And then once Texas came, I'm like, this game's the Natty. If we win this game, we're winning this. Whoever wins this game is winning it. Yeah. So, like, once the actual national championship came, it already felt like we won the national championship. To me, you know what I mean? It was like a victory lap. And I know the game got close at the end and whatnot, but, like, it didn't need to. You know,
they tried to shut it down, and Notre Dame kept fighting.
Yeah, they took their foot off the gas. And credit to Notre Dame, they realized they took the foot off the gas and they put theirs on the gas. And, you know, got the game close, whatever. But I don't know, man. I mean, it's something that you realize afterwards, like, you don't get to see that very many times in your lifetime. I mean, unless you're an Alabama fan, and you've been alive through the Nick Saban era, you don't get to see that many times in your life. So obviously that was the kind of cool thing about it. All those players, though, was really the main thing, dude. All them guys, they really went through their entire career without winning anything at all. And then in the last effort they had, they just fought and gave it every single thing that they had. And you could tell that they were just giving all they had every single time they went on the field, and it paid off for them in the end. So that was, I don't know, it was cool, man. It's cool for those guys. Me personally, though, Chad, I'm not basking in it, dude. I'm moving on. I'm ready for 2025. Okay. Like
I'm still hanging out in the Natty High, man. Just
not me, dude. I'm ready to.
Yeah, you know, I told Chuck this and Dano and stuff, and they know. And my son and I were watching the Natty, and I watched that first drive from Notre Dame, and I literally just put my foot up on the ottoman and my arms behind my head after that touchdown, because I knew right then and there they just didn't have enough to beat us. And at any point that Ryan Day wanted to dial something up, he could. Like watching that game, like you just knew, like we had better athletes. It was closer than I thought it would be, but I also truly believe, like I said, I don't think Ryan Day was going to bury Marcus. I think he could have. I think they could have put 50 on him. But they didn't. And there's so many redemption arcs in this, like in that, you know, the Jaden Fielding redemption arc, the Jack Sawyer redemption arc, the Travion Henderson, Ryan Day. And I'm still just enjoying it. Now, I go to California in a couple weeks. I'll be back in the last week of February, and spring practice will be right around the corner. And I'll start to get into that 2025 gear. But right now, I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying the national championship. I've been alive for 3 of them. I've only seen the 02, 14, and this one. I wasn't alive for any of the Woody Hayes ones. So so you've got Paul Brown, Woody Hayes, Jim Trussell, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day. And so I've seen Tress, Meyer, and Day. So like you're right, we didn't go on that run like Saban did at Alabama, and
not yet.
Not yet. Well, we were there in 2020, and if we beat Georgia in 22, like who knows what this looks like. But again, here we are. So I know we were going to look at the Too Deep, but we're almost 40 minutes. So why don't we do that next week? Terry will be back next Friday. We'll start, and then I'll start looking at 2025 next Friday. How about that? We'll make a deal.
Hey,
I'll take one more week
look,
of enjoying the Natty.
listen, the good thing for you, Chad, is you get to pop into 2025. You get to go through spring ball. You get to check out the 2025 team. And then you get to go right back to basking in 2024 all through summer, all the way. That's the good thing about winning the national championship, man, is you can bask in it next year if you want. We lose a game next year, you can bask in it. I mean,
still Natty
if you want to. I'm not going to do that. I'm just letting you know I'm not going to do that.
No.
I'm moving on. But, hey, I mean, like I said, dude, that whole winning the national championship thing, like, we can't let people just gloss over that. We can't. It doesn't matter what happened throughout the season. Like, as an Ohio State fan, right? Ohio State lost to Michigan. Okay, I'm ready to focus on that because I'm moved on to 2025. But if you're not, and you're basking in the national championship, then that game kind of means nothing. It happened. It's already in the past, and Ohio State went on, and they learned from it, and they won the national. Like, in life, what are you supposed to do when you lose, dude? You're supposed to learn from it, move on, get better, and go win the next challenge you have. And that's what this Ohio State Buckeye team did. So, again, you just got to give credit where it's due.
Let's wrap up the show with this. So I have a tweet that I've saved for wherever from 2021 after we lost to Michigan.
Okay.
And I said I would 10 out of 10 take a national championship, even if it meant we lost to Michigan. And there's a whole bunch of Michigan people in there like, what, you lie, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm serious, though. And so we have that scenario. Let me caveat this with, if we don't miss 2 field goals, we win. You know, so that game, it wasn't a 42 to 20
field goals, man.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't a 42 to 20 ass whipping, you know,
no.
anything like that. So, you know, they can say 13 to 10 all they want to me. It doesn't bother me a lick because we are the national champions, and we are not embroiled in the largest cheating controversy ever in history. So
the whole thing is stupid anyway, Chad. Like, Michigan plans on being good every year, right? They plan on being good every year from here on out. Ohio State and Michigan are going to get in the playoffs every year because Ohio State is not going to miss the playoffs. We're also going to be good. Yeah. So that whole argument, it only lasts until the first time they have a team good enough to make it to the playoffs. Because no matter what, whoever loses that game will be in the playoffs. Right. You know what I mean? Like if their team was, let's say this year, instead of losing 5 games, they lost 2 games and they beat Ohio State. We would have been in the playoffs with them, and Ohio State goes on to win the national championship. It wouldn't have mattered. Right. So as soon as they make the playoffs, losing to Ohio State, that argument's dead anyway. It's not even about winning it. It's about, if you're in the playoffs after you lost that game, you got nothing to talk about. Just shut up. So it's like the fact that they were bad means that they can talk more about it because they didn't make the. I don't know.
They don't have anything else. They don't have anything else. That's
that's all they got, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I get it, man. I do. I find it a little. So for me, and I think this is, and I don't want to insult people's intelligence, but with the 12-team playoff, the game has changed. I don't want to diminish the rivalry, but this is now the NFL of college football. So nobody in the NFL is trying to. I mean, they're trying, but you know, the going undefeated, going into the playoffs and then beating everybody in the playoffs, like that's. I don't even think the Patriots were able to do that one year. So the expectation has changed, and so these Michigan folks that don't seem to grasp that, or don't want to grasp it, or they're just being ignorant to be ignorant, so that they can say 13 to 10. That's the change, you know. So Ryan Day, I felt like all year managed this team almost like an NFL team, giving people rest, bringing in Q, you know, the whole thing, all of it, you know, rotating the defensive line more, all of that, you know, helped them in their playoff run, because you saw how fresh Trey was, especially in the last 4 games of the playoffs. So, like, your goal is to make the playoffs. That's what your goal is now in college football. Be good enough to be in the 12 teams and go on a run and play, you know, be hot in the playoffs. So, I mean, we saw that with, and even with Major League Baseball, we saw that with the Detroit Tigers this year. They got hot and stayed hot until they played the Indians. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on it. Like, the game has changed, and I think some people are having a hard time accepting that the expanded playoff format.
Well, not just the game has changed, not just the playoff, but the conferences have changed.
Yeah.
This was the first year of the new conference alignment, and every team lost 2 games pretty much. Like, I mean, when you look down, like, there was Oregon who went undefeated because they played Ohio State, and then they played a weak schedule after that. Pretty much. I mean, I guess they beat Michigan. I can't say that, but whatever. Anyway, they went undefeated, but going undefeated and then losing the way they did in the playoffs is not the same as playing good at that time of the season and going on that run. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you said, like, that's what really matters now, because it is more of an NFL model, and the divisions or the conferences are more stacked now to where you're going to end up playing tougher games. And I mean, you're not going to see teams go undefeated really anymore. And for a team to go undefeated through the regular season, chances are that team probably played a weak schedule, and then when they get in the playoffs, they're going to get hit in the mouth.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think Nick Saban summed it up too, because I was trying to remember what year it was. They lost to Auburn in the regular season, and then went on and won the national championship. And nobody remember.
Yeah.
I honestly forgot they lost to Auburn. I couldn't remember who they lost to.
I didn't know that Nick Saban won a national championship losing to Auburn.
Yeah,
I never knew that until he said that.
I was trying to. It was, I don't know. I want to say it was like 2017, but like, because there was like that missed field goal one. I was trying to remember what year that was, where the kick six. I think that was the year they won the Natty, but they lost to Auburn on that fluke play. You know, so it happens, man. Like, it happens, and you're going to lose games. It just happens.
Well, and here's the thing too. Like, again, I like talking about the whole Michigan thing, just because it's an interesting conversation too. Like, you have Ryan Day, who clearly has some kind of mental issue with the Michigan game.
He has a mental block.
However, I also think that after this last loss in the Michigan game, what I've been saying, the way that I've been explaining this loss, right? I've been explaining it as the only loss in Ryan Day's career that he doesn't have an excuse for. That's how, you know, and if you just go down the list, like, very quickly, you think back to what the first loss was, 2019 Clemson, the refs and the defense. Yeah. I mean, not refs and the defense, but the refs. The refs in that game kind of screwed them over. 2020 Bama, it was COVID. Players got injured, all that stuff. I'm not going to go through the whole list.
Portland Club covering Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but basically, I just think that Ryan Day had an excuse for every single loss that he's had in his entire career until that Michigan game. And I think that Ohio State is lucky that they got players on their team that were willing to go into the locker room or into the meeting room and talk to Ryan Day and be like, dude, you did this and you need to fix this. And Ryan Day had to own up to that, like, man to man with his players. I always explain it as having players that are undeniable. When you're undeniable, you can go to the coach and be like, you messed up. Because the coach can't come back to you and be like, well, you messed up, JJ. You messed up, Caleb Downs. Like, no, we made plays. You messed up. And we're, you know, those are undeniable type players, like 2 of the best players in the country.
Right.
And you, even the guy, there's like that article that came out recently about Brandon Ennis.
Yeah.
Yeah, about Brandon Ennis talking. Brandon Ennis, I think, is undeniable as a leader. Maybe not as a player, but he also didn't play much in that game. And when he did, he played well. But as a leader, I think Brandon Ennis is that undeniable type of character. So I don't know. I think that meeting that happened after that game maybe kind of awoken a beast in Ryan Day, like, with him doing that and then doing what he did in the playoffs. And now kind of that confidence of winning that national championship, which I know was like one of his biggest goals, maybe even his biggest goal. As much as Ohio State fans want Michigan to be the number 1 goal, that may not have been the case for Ryan Day. He's not from Ohio. Ryan, you know what I mean? Like, I know that we hate to hear that, but he almost might benefit from not looking at the game the way that people from Ohio do. Because for him, it seems like it's a burden. And I don't want the game to be a burden to him. I want him to coach his best game ever in that game.
I want him to come in and let his balls out, hang out, man. That's what I want to do. Yeah,
do what you do, man.
Yeah,
like, we're with you. Do what you do.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, in that scenario, you know, he coached so tight, and I remember too. So I was there in 2022 against Michigan, and that, like, but the whole stadium was tight because we had just gotten beat in 2021 up there, and the whole stadium just felt like on pins and needles. And then it was that way again this year. It just seemed like, you know, but when I can honest to goodness tell you, when Jack Sawyer made that interception in the end zone, I was like, we're going to win this. That's it. this is gonna change everything. And I was a little upset that like he didn't try to like pitch it, like for a,
Try
but
to make a play.
but then I saw him run, in the Texas game for redemption. But
That's
anyways,
funny.
yeah, I'm with you, and I think we're going to see a different Ryan Day this year. But yeah, so guys, next Friday, Terry will be back. We'll be doing the two deep and some other stuff. I'm guessing we'll have our defensive coordinator announced by then. But Terry, thanks for coming on, man. If you guys are still with us, make sure you go check him out. Terry, tell him one more time your college football CFB underscore. You say your stuff. I don't know.
You're good. Hey, you're good. That's really mostly where you find me is CFB_stop on Twitter. Just hit me up on there. And then I'm usually anywhere on Best Damn Media. You might catch me like the morning Buckeye roast whenever they do it with Ron and Q. And then me and Cleveland Mike do our Wednesday, the Fans Ed show, which we're picking back up next week. We missed a couple weeks, but me and him kind of talked. We're going to do a little bit of rebranding, not rebranding, but some new intros and stuff like that. And pop back out next week. And we're going to talk about all these coaches and all this stuff going on. So that's where you can find me at, man.
All right. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on, hopping on, and helping me out. You guys enjoy your weekend. Revel in the natty a little bit. Stay safe. And as always,
We're thinking about 2025.
Yeah. Go Bucks.